All right, so get this. We're diving deep today into how to actually think in English.
Not just translate in your head, right?
Yeah, ditch that mental translator. It can be such a pain.
Definitely, it's a total game changer for fluency, especially for something like the IELTS.
Oh, yeah, big time. And for this deep dive, we've got some great advice from Rachel's English. Go natural English and bookish English.
Awesome, a trio of experts.
So are you ready to unlock that English thinking brain?
Let's do it.
Okay, first up, Rachel's English has this idea called name it to claim it.
I love that.
It sounds super simple, right? You just label everyday objects around you in English.
Yeah, but there's a twist.
Oh, there's got to be a twist.
It's all about the pronunciation.
So instead of just mentally swapping words.
You're actually making your brain work with the sounds of English.
Oh, I see. So it's not just table in your head. You're actually saying it out loud.
Exactly, and you're focusing on how it feels to make those sounds.
Interesting. So it's like building muscle memory, but for your tongue.
Yes. And you know what's funny? Rachel actually developed this technique because she had a tough time with pronunciation when she was studying opera.
Opera.
Ah.
Wow. So I guess if you're singing another language, pronunciation is everything.
Oh, for sure.
I wonder if she had to go around labeling all the props in Italian.
Haha, maybe, but the point is she turned her own challenge into a technique that helps tons of English learners.
I love that. So I bet even right now, our listeners could look around and start naming things in English.
Yeah, and really pay attention to how each sound feels.
And don't worry if you don't know the word for something.
Oh, yeah. That's a perfect chance to learn a new word.
Exactly. Write it down, look it up, and try to use it in a sentence right away.
That's how those new words stick.
Okay, so we've started labeling, but how do we go from single words to thinking in full sentences?
Well, Rachel's English suggests starting small with phrases like, I am.
Okay, so simple phrases like, I am hungry, I am tired, I am learning English.
You got it. It's like dipping your toes in the water before you jump in the pool.
I like that analogy. And these simple phrases, they reinforce basic grammar without it feeling like you're studying.
Right. Your brain's kind of picking up those patterns naturally.
So it's like building fluency from the ground up.
Brick by brick.
All right, so what's the next brick in our language wall?
Okay, once you feel comfy with those I am phrases, Rachel recommends describing your surroundings in English.
Well, that's a good one.
Yeah.
So like the window is open, my coffee is hot, this chair is comfy.
Exactly. Like you're narrating your life, but in English.
I love it. It's low pressure.
Totally. And you're practicing sentence formation because you're just describing what you see.
Speaking of taking the pressure off, both Rachel's English and Go Natural English emphasize the power of talking to yourself.
Yes. Like having a chat with your best English-speaking friend.
But that friend is you.
Uh-huh. Exactly.
I have to admit, that sounds a little strange. Do people actually do this?
More than you think. It's a fantastic way to practice without worrying about anyone judging you.
Oh, that's true. I can just try out different phrases or new vocabulary.
Yep. And even work on your accent.
And since it's just me, I can talk about whatever I want.
Precisely. You can narrate your day practice for a presentation or just have a silly conversation with yourself.
I guess it's all about getting comfortable with the sound of your own voice in English.
It really is. And, you know, Rachel even tells this funny story about talking to herself in Spanish on a road trip.
No way. Even the experts talk to themselves.
Oh, yeah, even though it felt weird at first.
But she pushed past that, and it helped her fluency.
It did. And that brings up another important point, consistency.
Right. Even just a few minutes of self-talk each day can make a big difference.
Huge. It's training your brain to think in English without you even realizing it.
So sneaky, but effective. Okay, so what are some practical ways to work self-talk into our daily lives?
Well, you could simply narrate your daily routine, you know?
Huh?
I am brushing my teeth. I am making breakfast.
Oh, yeah. Or even mentally plan your day in English. Today, I'm going to work, then the gym, then I'll meet my friends for dinner.
See, you're already doing it.
I am.
You're creating a script for your day, but in English.
Okay, so we've got labeling objects, practicing simple phrases, describing our surroundings, and talking to ourselves. What other tricks do we have up our sleeves?
Well, Rachel's English throws down a challenge. Switch one daily activity to English.
Oh, I like that. Make it a game. So instead of thinking about my to-do list in my native language, I do it in English.
Exactly. Or you change your phone settings to English.
Ooh, or start keeping my calendar in English.
You got it.
I bet some people are already doing this without even realizing it's helping their English.
Probably. And that leads us to another key idea, immersion.
Right, the more you surround yourself with English, the easier it becomes to think in English.
Exactly. And speaking of immersion, Rachel has another great tip. Use an English dictionary.
So instead of relying on translations,
You're understanding definitions in English.
which really forces you to think in English.
And it strengthens your vocabulary,
It's all about creating that English bubble around yourself.
even if it's just in your mind.
And you know what's really interesting? Even boring everyday tasks can help you with fluency.
Oh, yeah. Rachel actually has a video where she narrates doing laundry in English.
Uh-huh. I can't imagine making folding socks sound exciting.
But that's the point. When you connect language to actions, it becomes more memorable.
So what activity could you narrate in English, listeners? Think about it. We'll be right back with more tips on how to turn your brain into an English thinking machine. Don't go anywhere.
Welcome back, everybody. Are you ready for more?
I'm ready to level up my English thinking. What about you?
Oh, absolutely. Let's dive back in.
Okay, so last time we were talking about immersion,
Right.
and Rachel's English has another interesting suggestion along those lines.
Yeah, she recommends learning something totally new, but learning it through English instruction.
Oh, that's interesting. So we're talking about picking up a new skill.
Uh-huh.
It could be anything like cooking or coding, crafting, playing an instrument,
Yeah, anything you're interested in.
and using English language resources to learn it.
Exactly like you're on a secret mission. You can only use English to learn this new skill.
I'm in. So the challenge is to find those English language resources, right?
Right, could be YouTube tutorials or online courses, even books.
So it's like double the learning. You're learning a new skill and you're immersing yourself in English at the same time.
Exactly, win-win.
Okay, so we've got learning new skills. What about those times when we're not actively trying to learn? Can we still fit in some English practice?
Oh, for sure. Rachel's English has some cool tips for your nighttime and morning routines.
Morning and nighttime. What does she suggest?
So when you wake up, she says, try mentally planning your day, but do it all in English.
Okay, so instead of just hitting snooze and grabbing coffee,
You're running through your to-do list.
thinking about everything I need to get done, but in English.
Exactly. You're setting the tone for your day, and that tone is English.
I like that. And then before bed, she suggests recapping your day.
Also in English.
So like a mental debriefing session.
Like today I went to work and I had a delicious lunch and I learned 3 new English words.
Okay. I can see how that would be helpful. Plus, isn't there something about our brains processing information while we sleep?
Yeah, there is. When you visualize things and say them out loud in English, you're strengthening those connections in your brain.
It's like giving my brain some English homework to do overnight.
Exactly. Even while you're sleeping, your brain is working on your English.
Awesome. So we're getting a lot done even when we're not conscious of it. Okay, let's shift gears for a minute and talk about something that can be a little frustrating.
You mean like when I can't think of the right word.
Well, that's part of it. But I'm
Okay.
talking about making mistakes.
Oh, yeah. Everyone makes mistakes. It's totally normal.
I know, but it's still easy to get embarrassed.
I get it. But you know what? Both Go Natural English and Bookish English say the same thing.
What's that?
Mistakes are super valuable. They're actually a really important part of learning any language.
So instead of seeing mistakes as failures,
We should see them as feedback.
okay, I can try that, but how does that help me actually learn?
Think of it like this. Every time you make a mistake, your brain is getting new information about the language.
So it's like my brain is figuring out what works and what doesn't work.
Yes. Go Natural English has this great saying, do less.
Wait, do less. But shouldn't I be doing more to learn English?
They don't mean studying less, they mean overthinking less.
Oh, I see.
Stop translating every word in your head. Stop worrying so much about messing up.
Let my brain just do its thing.
Exactly. Our brains are amazing at figuring out languages.
So the more I relax and immerse myself in English.
The better you'll get at thinking in it.
Okay, that's actually pretty reassuring because sometimes it feels like I'm fighting a losing battle.
And remember, you're not alone. Every single person learning English makes mistakes.
So it's all part of the journey.
It is, and Bookish English actually has another great suggestion. Embrace your curiosity.
Curiosity, what does that have to do with English?
It's a huge part of learning. When you're curious, you're more likely to look up new words. Try out different accents, ask questions.
So it's about being playful and adventurous with English.
Exactly. Don't just stick to what's comfortable. Push yourself to explore.
Look up words. I don't know, listen to different accents, maybe even read a book in a genre I've never tried before.
You got it. And speaking of resources, Bookish English talks about the benefits of using something called graded readers.
Oh yeah, those are really helpful, especially for reading.
They're basically simplified English texts that are written for different learning levels.
So instead of trying to tackle a super difficult novel
You can start with a graded reader that's a good fit for your level.
and work your way up.
Exactly. Plus, graded readers cover tons of different topics, so you can find something that interests you.
So it's like reading for fun, but also secretly improving my English.
Exactly. As you read, you naturally start to absorb new vocabulary, grammar, even cultural insights.
Okay, one last thing before we move on to our final part, active listening.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
I thought we were talking about thinking.
But listening and thinking are super connected. When you actively listen to English, you're training your brain to process the language better.
So it's not just about hearing the words. It's about really paying attention to how they're used.
Think about how much English we hear every day from movies, music podcasts, even just conversations.
That's true. I guess I just tune it out sometimes.
But if you really want to improve, make a conscious effort to listen.
Okay, so what are some ways to do that?
You could start by just paying more attention to the English you hear around you.
So when I'm watching TV or listening to a song?
Yeah, try to focus on the pronunciation,
Yeah.
the intonation, how the words are put together.
So I'm tuning in to the music of the language.
Exactly. And you can also find English audio content that you enjoy, like podcasts or audiobooks.
Even listening to the radio in English.
The key is to choose something that you're actually interested in.
Because if it's boring, I'll probably just zone out.
Exactly. But when you're into it, your brain is much more likely to learn.
Okay, so active listening isn't just about improving my English. It's about finding things in English that I like.
Exactly. It's about making English a part of your life, not just a school subject.
Okay, I'm getting it. Now, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive,
I want to leave you with something to think about.
a little cliffhanger.
I love it.
Of all the techniques we've talked about today,
Labeling objects, embracing mistakes, active listening.
which one resonates most with you, and how can you start using it in your life right now? We'll be back with more in just a bit. Okay, we're back for the final part of our deep dive into thinking in English.
And, we've covered a lot of different techniques and tips,
Yeah.
but it all boils down to one thing, really shifting your thinking to English. It's a journey.
It's not just a one-time thing.
Right, it's not like a light switch you just flip on.
It's more like a muscle you have to keep working out.
Exactly, and just like any workout, it takes time and effort
But the cool thing is we've got all these different tools and techniques now,
to help us along the way.
right? From those simple things like labeling objects and practicing phrases.
All the way to the more immersive stuff, like learning new skills in English and really actively listening.
And we can't forget about the power of self-talk and, not being afraid of making mistakes.
Totally. It's all about finding what works for you and making it a part of your everyday life.
Making English a natural part of your routine, not just something you study.
And I think it's important to remember that everyone's journey is different.
There's no one right way to do it.
Exactly what works for me might not work for you, and that's okay.
The key is to just experiment. Be patient with yourself. And most importantly,
Have fun with it.
because learning a language should be enjoyable.
It shouldn't feel like a chore.
Exactly. The more you enjoy it, the more likely you are to keep going.
And hey, you never know, maybe someday you'll be the one giving advice to other English learners.
Yeah, it's pretty cool to think about that.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I hope you're feeling inspired to really start thinking in English.
Yeah, and we'd love to hear from you.
What are you most excited to try? What are your biggest challenges?
Share your thoughts, your questions, your aha moments, anything you learned from this deep dive.
Until next time, keep exploring the amazing world of English.
Happy learning, everyone.